Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on creating inviting, intentional, and inspired play spaces your child will love, no matter the size of your home. I want to begin by acknowledging the indigenous people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today. I'm currently on the traditional land of Naruk Willem clan of the Boon Wurrung people, who are part of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. A few housekeeping rules before we start the session. This session is being recorded, so kindly put your phones on silent and feel free to put your questions in the chat box as the conversation progresses, and we'll get to them once the session is complete. So let's begin. My name is Tribly Dsouza. I'm the founder of Nino Mondo. It's a support platform for mothers juggling new motherhood, career, and well-being. And I am super excited to welcome our guest today, Andreea, who's the founder of Kids Den Consulting. Andreea is a Montessori trained educator with over 15 years of experience guiding children from birth through adolescence. Drawing on Montessori's less is more philosophy, she works with parents to transform cluttered homes into calm, purposeful environments where children thrive no matter the size of the home. Andreea, thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to offer this experience to our community of mothers.
Hi, thank you so much for your wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with you today, and I'm really looking forward to today's session. So let's get started.
Cool. So today we are exploring something that many parents, especially mothers, who think about often but feel so overwhelmed, which is how do they go about creating play spaces at home that are intentional, functional, and deeply inspiring and inviting. So let's start. And I'll start with the first question, Andreea, which is what happens is we buy toys and we simply put them, or we just give it to our children. And sometimes they're scattered across the lounge, and we hope that our child will play, or we give the child to play and we expect them to start playing. But your approach is more about intentional play spaces. So help us understand that why do you think that intentional play spaces make a big difference to how kids play and the peace of mind that parents want through that play?
Yeah, so it all kind of starts from the idea that the child belongs in every area of the household, not just one designated playroom. But we can actually guide how that happens intentionally, beautifully, and with boundaries. So to go back to your question, so what do we mean when we say intentional play spaces? These are designed with the child development in mind and with the family's needs. So they actually go behind just somewhere to play, and they create an environment that support kids' growth, and at the same time it eases parents' peace of mind. So for kids play, I'll say that safety encourages freedom. So when we design a place with child safety in mind, they have the freedom to run, play, and explore and imagine without constant adult intervention, which in turn fosters creativity and independence. Um, the spaces are meant to support developmental needs. So an intentional play space will have opportunities for physical, social, and cognitive growth. And there will be variety and engagement. So we'll have a mix of activities like active, sensory, imaginative, and calming, which help children stay engaged longer and meet different developmental needs. And now for parents' peace of mind, there's confidence and safety because they know that the environment minimizes risk. So there's secure boundaries, there's age-appropriate activities and equipment, and there's visibility. Um, they also encourage connection because intentional spaces are meant to be designed so that adults can dip in and out of play um, and easily. And so that fosters connections and shared moments, but without the micromanaging. And it also reduces stress. So, when parents know that their children are safe and engaged, They can sit back, relax, make dinner, or if there's multiple children, you do homework with an older child. So I guess in other words, intentional play spaces turn playtime into a richer, safer, and more balanced experience for children. And they transfer it from stress point into a source of ease for parents and joy.
That's beautiful. You touched upon a lot of things in terms of safety, secure boundaries, um, and inspiring, and we'll come to all of those. Um, but parents also, especially given the fact that we are not used to living with children, and then suddenly children come and there's a lot of clutter. So as much as we think, oh, this toy would be so much fun and my child will enjoy playing, from a functional standpoint, it gets hard and you have family members who keep bringing toys. So
I mean,
what
there's
are
so many
some ways?
holidays and birthdays,
Yeah.
and
And
if
just
you have
because
three
you like that
children,
child,
that's just, yeah.
you have a preschool. So help us understand what are the some ways to keep the play areas both fun and functional?
Um, well, so that's a great question because I think the best play areas strike the perfect balance between fun, so engaging, imaginative, energizing, and functional. So it has to be safe, easy to use, but also supportive of multiple needs. And I'll tell you a couple practical ways to achieve both. So for kids, obviously fun comes first, but with purpose. So you can have a mix of activity zones. So you can include space for physical activity and big movements, but also quieter spots for imagination, reading, or sensory play. You need open-ended activities, so like blocks, loose parts, or water play and stand play. If you have the space, then these allowed kids to invent their own games without following just a set of rules. Um, they need to be rotating elements, so you can swap out toys or props regularly, so that the space feel refreshed, but you don't need to always redesign it completely. And there has to be an age appropriate variety, so you have to have different zones for toddlers or preschoolers or older kids, just that way everyone stays engaged and challenged, but and no one's frustrated. And now for parents, so functional and peace of mind, there's clear sight lines. So you can design it in a way that you can see kids clearly without having to hover over them. And so the environment also needs to be safe but challenging. So equipment should let the kids test limits safely, giving parents confidence while kids build skills. And there also has to be easy cleanup and flow. So, you have storage bins, washable surfaces, and clear pathways. And this way we keep the space organized and it reduces stress. So I think we can think of it as play for kids and peace for parents, because a well-designed play area invites curiosity and joy while also being practical, safe, and supportive of our daily routines.
I like that line, play for kids and peace for parents.
Yeah.
But I want to ask this question because I know not everybody lives in palatial homes, um, or it's always not possible. So, what are some of your suggestions to create this purposeful play? Because you mentioned a lot of things like open-ended play, imaginatory play, close-ended play, but it looks like there are and the fact that there are zones. I think let's focus on how we can do it in a smaller home. Let's say, for an example, in a two-bedroom home, where the child, like you said in the beginning, the child needs to be, um, or is it, what did you say? That the child needs to
Hard.
be able to part of the whole home, right?
Yeah.
Not just in one corner and say that's your play space. So how can somebody create a playful space in a one-bedroom apartment or a two-bedroom apartment?
I think that's a great question because when I started this business, I was focused more on playrooms. But then I think with London, you quickly discover that not every household has space for a playroom because apartments here are so small. So, and I think sometimes family thinks that they need a huge playroom for their kids, but actually, I think even small homes can have amazing play corners if you are intentional. So I'll start with some space saving hacks. And you can use vertical space. So wall mounted shelves, pegboards, or hanging baskets. And these keep toys off the floor and organized. You can use play mats that roll up or foldable tents so you can put them away at the end of play. And try multi-use furniture like ottomans and benches and coffee tables with storage underneath. Those, you can put things away after play. Um, and purposeful design hacks. So you can have defined corners. You can use a rug or a curtain or a low shelf, and these can frame a play area even in a shared living room. Um, or we can use theme baskets like art baskets or building baskets or pretend play baskets, and we can just rotate these. And so the kids stay engaged without clutter, so we don't have to have all of them out at once. And inviting displays, so keep a few toys visible and accessible because usually less is more for sparking creativity. And now parent-friendly hacks. So for easy cleanup, label bins or baskets to make it simple for kids to help tidy up, because that's important. We can't always just tidy up for them. Flexible zones, so we can have little corners that are play areas by day and reading nooks at night. And we can add, calm touches like a soft rug or cushions or cozy lighting to make the space feel intentional and soothing. So essentially, you don't really need a huge playroom, just thoughtfully designed corner that's safe, engaging, and easy to reset.
That is a very good tip where you said to use coffee tables as toy shelves. I know we did it in our house where we used the simple IKEA $20 coffee table, but we
Mm,
used it like a Montessori shelf because Montessori stuff sometimes comes with a huge price tag and then the whole
yeah.
Montessori shelf. But we used that coffee table and we would put four toys on the top and four at the bottom. So that way it was uh, helpful. Now, you mentioned a couple of times refresh, not redesign, and then you mentioned rotation. So I want to touch upon that as to how to do that effectively, such that because people keep getting toys as gifts or whatever. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, this is a fancy new toy. I need to give this to my child. But then I think that needs to be balanced. So I want to hear how would you suggest parents create that balance, especially when they keep getting plenty of toys?
Yeah, so I think this is, a great point to bring into our discussions because I think parents sometimes feel like kids need endless activities. But, we've said before that the more you have, the more overwhelmed kids get. And then they always end up playing with like the one thing that they know. So it actually is about simplicity, variety, and the environment. So, as we were saying, keep it simple but engaging. So, we rotate the toys, we don't overload. So, fewer toys out means that there's more focused play. And then we can rotate every few days, depending on how the kids are engaged. And then you don't need to buy more stuff. Then we have open-ended materials, and we've touched on that before. So like blocks or art supplies or dress-up clothes or even like cardboard boxes, they last longer than simple purpose toys. And then we have to set up invitations to play as well. So, and you can do this when your child's napping or when they're at school, like you will put tray with Play-Doh and cookie cutters on the table, or you'll stick a paper to the floor and draw a road on it, and you put some cars there and leave some colors. I think these help spark curiosity, and they get the kids started, essentially. And to support longer play, we should have chunk zones. So we have to give the children small defined zones so they can actually sit down and start working rather than roam around the room. We can always add the twist to keep them engaged. You can put a blanket over the table to make a fort, or toy animals in the block area. So then, we extend the play without always having to buy new gear. Um, and I think the most important thing is to also let the children lead. And as adults, we have to resist the urge to always jump in too quickly, because as you know, a little bit of boredom often leads to deeper and more imaginative play. Um, and then for parents' peace of mind, you prep once and they enjoy it for longer. So, the quick setups, like I said, the tray and the paper and the sensory bins or art tray, they keep kids busy with minimal effort. And we have to keep cleanup simple, like baskets or label bins. These help kids reset the space themselves, so it's not too overwhelming. So I think, the takeaway here is that kids don't need more stuff. They need less stuff, but for it to be shown in fresh ways, and also to have the freedom to play without us over directing.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to summarize what all we've understood. So one, kids don't need a lot of stuff. Kids need few things. And those few things should be rotated every few days. And there should be avenues for different kinds of play in different parts of the house. So there should be avenues for free play. There should be avenues for sensorial play, and there should be avenues for closed and open-ended play. Also, what I heard from you, Andreea, is um, that the play space should be inviting, or the play should be inviting. So we take the time and understand that these things take 5 to 10 minutes to set up, but we take the time to create these inviting spaces by simply putting, say, a blanket over the table. Because I know what you see on Instagram and all of that, it looks nice, but it can be overwhelming. But
Yeah.
and I can tell this from personal experience also. There are times when I'm folding a bed sheet and I've got to do something else and I forgotten to fold and I put it on the chair. And the next thing I know, my children have used it as a tunnel. And then they're playing with it for 20 minutes. So sometimes it's not about the toys, but sometimes about how things are left undone, because children see things. We see a blanket over the chair, but they see a fort. And
Yeah.
then you touched upon boredom. So boredom is something that modern parents are scared of. They think that, oh, my child is getting bored. And I think boredom is an important part of play. And in Montessori, it is said that it's okay to be bored. So I really want to touch upon it. As much as this is all about creating functional play spaces, I want you to tell us, based on your experience, the role of boredom and why it is important, or is it even important?
I think it is. And I think, from my experience, from my job, I think there's a lot of parents that just want someone to constantly entertain the child. And, in lockdown, I think when I was thrown into like 12 hours straight with one child, I was like, okay, I need half an hour to have a coffee and reset, because we've been together for 6 hours, so I would like you to go and play independently. We had a playroom, there were lots of toys. I was like, you can do this. And she would come back to me every 5 minutes and be like, look at this, look at how I'm doing this, like, and I'm like, this is not independent play, this is you wanting to be constantly entertained. And I think it took some time, but we got there. But boredom usually, like, helps with creativity and imagination. I think it's very important that the kids get to play independently. Just because they play independently, it doesn't mean that we neglect them. It doesn't mean that we don't want to be with them. But sometimes, I sit back and I watch the kids play by themselves, and you see, like, they have these little play with their dolls and their toys, and they actually play conversations from before in the day. And it's just how they're they stimulate their brain and stuff. So I don't think it's a bad thing, you know. And sometimes I look like when I go to the playground and there's kids playing, like they'll just play with, you know, with dirt and stuff, and just pour it over something. And in their head, there's just so much happening. So
They're
I don't think
cooking,
it's,
maybe making
yes,
chocolate out of the
right?
dirt.
Right, and to us is like, oh my goodness, like you're getting so dirty and your clothes are like this but you know what, like they're in that moment and they can do that for half an hour, 45 minutes, you know. So not necessarily what looks like boredom to us, it's boredom to them, or you know, but we need to kind of push them to go and do things independently, just so that they can build up on that, you know, those creative skills and imagination and all this this kind of play, you know.
And I really like the fact where you said that allowing your child to be bored is not neglect. Because I think that is an unknown, unsaid, maybe not even understood by the parent themselves, that when I allow my child to be bored, I'm not neglecting my child. So, so sometimes it's not about I want to entertain my child. Sometimes it's about I am not being with my child all the time. So maybe I just put a screen in front of them so that they feel that, okay, in a way it's entertainment, but I think it's somewhere stemming from the fact that parents also think that they're neglecting the child, not like, that extreme side of
Yeah.
parental neglect. But that's a good point, and I think that's something that we have to understand, that boredom is fine. It's okay to be bored. Boredom encourages creativity. Um, I am conscious of time. I know you have some activity, Andrea, that you wanted our participants to think about so that they could think about how to design the play space for their children, which is one of the reasons they've come here to understand the guiding principles. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to first introduce the guiding principles and then do you want to encourage them, or what do you have in mind?
Yeah, so I can go through the guiding principles when parents start setting up or refreshing their space. So I think, you know, like we said before, purposeful play space doesn't have to be big or fancy, just safe, simple, engaging, and easy to refresh. So we'll go through those in a little bit more detail. So for it to be safe and secure, we have to make sure that the furniture and equipment, they're age appropriate. Um, there's clear sight lines for supervision, and that we have, you know, non-slip rugs and rounded edges and soft landings. Um, you know, we said this, but it has to be simple and intentional. So less is more, and we have to rotate toys instead of piling them up. Have defined zones, multi-use furniture and baskets to save space, to make it engaging and open-ended. So materials kids can use in many ways, mix of active and calm play options, and inviting displays, and easy to maintain. So labeled bins or baskets kids can reach, quick cleanup routines kids can join in, and washable and durable surfaces and materials. And then it has to be flexible and refreshing. So we swap out toys around every 2 weeks to keep play fresh. Or it can actually be done sooner, depending, you know, if there's toys that are just sitting there on the shelf and the kids are not engaging with them, you can take that one out and bring another one in. Um, and then we need to allow the space to evolve with our child. And then, you know, have the corners that can shift and can be play areas by day and reading nooks at night. So I think, you know, if you look at all of these like that would be very helpful. Um, the activity that I had in mind was the mini room redesign. So, you know, if everyone can think of their play space at the moment, and you have 5 minutes to redesign it, and no budget, just imagination. What toys could you rotate today? Um, if there's no reading nook, where could you set one up? Um, what feels cluttered, unused, or stressful? And how is easy is cleanup right now? So could the kids help more if it was simpler?
All right, let's give 5 minutes to everyone. I'm going to open my notepad and start with that because I was thinking of implementing all the learnings from here. So, what was the first question, Andrea?
So it was, what toys could you rotate today?
What toys could I rotate? Okay. So, which is less is more. Okay.
Yeah. And also, through observation, we kind of see what kids are engaging with and what they're not engaging with. And then how do we make the space be more engaging again? How can we spark that creativity and their imagination?
So, what toys could spark their creativity and imagination? And are we designing just the playroom or are we thinking about, creating play spaces or play avenues around the house?
Well, I think, it depends on everyone's space. If there is a playroom, then yes. If you have small corners, that's why I said if you don't have a reading nook, like where could you possibly put one or create one for your child? Um, could it be their bedroom or the living room or, a corner in your bedroom?
Mm, okay. And what is the third question?
So how easy is cleanup right now? And could your kids help more if it was easier? Because I think sometimes, like I was talking to a mom a couple weeks ago and she said, oh, I just say to my child, like, do you want to do coloring? Do you want to do painting? And he always says no. And he always just wants to play with the Lego in the living room. And after a while, that's just so boring. And, her child just turned 3. Um, and I said, but he doesn't actually know what you mean when you say coloring or painting. Maybe he did it at nursery, didn't really enjoy it so much for various reasons. But it would just be easier if you set up a little tray with a few coloring pages, a few colors, or, a piece of paper on the floor. I love this one and I keep going on and on about it because you get just so much out of it. Like you just, for during Christmas time, I'd do like a little line, and then we had pegs with the cotton balls, so we would do the lights for the Christmas tree lightning and stuff. Like there's just so many ways that you can create, and then the cleanup, it's easy because you just rip off the paper off the floor, and then you put it in the recycling bin, or you hang it in the room, or depends what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, I could go on
Oh,
about this all day.
yeah, I know. But a few days ago, I was talking to my daughter's class teacher, and I was looking at the paintings created, and she mentioned a very important point. And I was thinking about, when you said how easy it is to clean up, mess is a very important part of play. Like when you talk about sensorial stuff, even coloring for that matter, parents are concerned that the color might fly on the wall. So, like, are there any ways that we can protect the place? Or like how do you suggest the mess be controlled and managed?
So I would say move all the activities like painting and, I said before, sand and water play and coloring and everything to an area where it's easy to clean up. So your kitchen, if you have, a table cover, they can do it there. If the floor, you don't have a carpet, so the floor would probably be easier to clean up. The walls would get messy. So like all these messy activities, I would put them somewhere where I'm comfortable with doing the cleaning up, because most of the times, like if there is painting or whatever, like the kids can help, but then you'll be the one doing the bigger things. So um obviously if it's in the living room, then you start panicking, like, oh no, paint is going to get on the carpet, how am I going to take that off? So essentially we still give kids the freedom to choose what activity they want to do. It'd be play-doh or painting or whatever it is, but within our boundary, because they can just do it, in the kitchen. And then so like everyone's happy, like they've chosen something that they want to do, and we're happy because we know that it's not gonna cause us any stress.
That is a very valid point. I In my daughter's Montessori school, they do the painting activities outside when the weather permits, because then if the color flies in whichever
It doesn't
direction the
matter.
child, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And yeah, so going back to the conversation with my daughter's teacher, and I was looking at the painting, and she said, the quality of the coloring material is so important because children also get frustrated. So if when you say that child who did not want to paint, for her, for the child, it might have been that the quality of materials was not good. So, in their head, they're trying to create a picture, but because the quality of material is so bad, they're not able to create it. But the moment so her point was, when you give good quality material, even if they are like five color pencils, but really good, that can make a huge difference in how longer they use the material. And that was like an aha moment for me as well. So I'm going to factor in high quality material in my notes for my children. All right. So, what toys could I rotate? What toys could spark creativity? How easy it is to clean up? And I have another question. Labeling, right? Because little kids don't know how to read, and they're the ones who make the most mess. So, how do you have, how do you get a child who doesn't know how to read yet, is pre-verbal? They may not even start talking yet. How do you get those children to start, like, participate in the tidying?
So I think we can use stickers, like car stickers, or if you print out a card with whatever toys there are and just stick it on the bin so they can actually easily match the toy with the picture, and modeling. I mean, like I think at that early stage is not so much about them doing a perfect job. It's just about them getting started to do something. So we can still direct and we can still model. We don't expect perfection, but we want to build up on that skill. And then when they're older and they can read and they can do things, like they already have the skill.
Yeah, stickers and labels of the materials, because yeah, stickers come, but if you take pictures and then print those pictures of the toys they actually have, that is a really good tip, because the child knows these are my toys, and that itself is a game, right? When you ask the child, that's a
Yeah,
sorting and
and
matching
matching.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Um, what was your last question, Andrea, as a part of your activity?
Uh, yeah, so that was about the cleanup, and then there
Clean
was
up.
what feels cluttered, unused, or stressful. And I think, like part of the preparation of the environment, like sometimes we have to also go through the activities and make sure that they all have, all their pieces. If there's puzzles, like sometimes we
Mhm.
have to, spend 5 minutes and check and see that all the pieces are there. Or if we're doing coloring, like I usually spend 5 minutes when the kids are napping to just kind of try out all the pencils and markers or whatever it is to see, do they still have ink in them or whatever it is, because you don't want kids to be frustrated. You want to offer them the tools that they can actually use. So yeah.
That is good. That is an important part, because their frustration when they miss a piece is real. Like, they realize that I've been working on this and the piece is missing. So to give all the pieces of a certain activity with a clear open end.
And they
Andrea,
can't finish, so there's no sense of, yes, I did this, if they can't finish. There's no
yeah, achievement of
yeah.
doing,
So
yeah.
the
Yeah, the
sense of
sense of
achievement.
completion that I finished this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we, started the call officially, you and I were chatting, and you mentioned this thing about a theme of activities. Do you want to touch upon that?
Yeah, so the one thing I wanted to say before is, when we do set up activities like whatever it is, if it's matching or puzzles or stacking toys, or you have to make sure that they're not already completed. So you don't leave the activity on the shelf already done, because it's not really appealing to the child to go and take something, break it, and do it again. So I usually leave a puzzle with a little basket next to it, and put the pieces in there so they can just take them together and do the activity and then finish it themselves. And the other thing I was going to say, so you can pick a subject that the child's interested in, and I'll give you one of my examples because I've used this before and it was just wonderful. So I was out with one of the kids, and there were lots of bees. Everyone knows that like bees are kind of dying right now, and it's just really, really sad. So we would see them on the pavement, and should always be like, oh, like there's a bee, what's happening and stuff. So we went to the shop and we bought a book about bees, and I've read that to her. And depending on the stage of development that they're at, so we did a couple like coloring activities where she got to color in the bee, and then we did a matching activity where we talked about body parts, and then she got to match them to the bee picture. And then we talked about the life cycle of a bee, and then we were reading in the book about ways to support the bees. And that's actually how I found out that it's just not enough to leave tray with water outside for the bees to drink from it, because they can drown. So you need to put like little sticks in the water so that they can actually land on the sticks and drink the water. So we did that, and then we went into the kitchen. Well, actually, we went to the store and we got some honey, and then we were talking about like this is what the bees are giving us, and then we made toast, and then she put the honey on the toast and actually had toast with honey for the first time. And it was just so beautiful to be able to touch on every single area of development just from one subject, and we didn't do it in one day. We did it over many, many, many days. But then I remember, like every time we were outside, she's like, oh, look, there's a bee. Oh, and then, we found out that bees love purple. So we should like, plant more lavender and like flowers that are purple to support, like them getting pollen and stuff. And why the bees are on the ground, and because their legs are full of pollen and stuff. So it's just like there's just so much information you can give a child just from one simple things, and also like so many things that we can find out ourselves, once you like focus on one subject. I loved it.
Yeah, I know. So you know what? I'm going to summarize. I put a Montessori lens on this. So what you did with the child is you gave her vocabulary lessons, right? With all the different concepts related to the bee, because okay, let me go to the beginning. You observed her interest in bee, which is observation. She was in that sensitive period of learning about bees, which is also understanding what the sensitive period your child is in, which is the interest. Then you started researching more about the bees because the child was interested, and then the vocabulary lessons happened on their own, not that you sat with a book to say, let's learn about all the words that are related to bee. They happened on their own. And then the biology kicked in, the botany kicked in, the understanding of animals' anatomy, and then their life cycle and how they contribute to the greater environment. That's like culture and humanities, and so many subjects covered just by understanding about one bee and not separating the subject like let's learn history today, let's learn science today. And that's the beauty about um, using play, which is the work of the child, and then layering it up with education. But then that's not education for the child, it's child's interest, right? And that's the beauty
Yeah.
about Montessori play spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love it. I think it's fascinating. And I think, with kids, they just have so many interests, and it it's just so easy. And to be fair, like we only bought the book. That was £5. Everything else, or however much it was at the time, but everything else we had around the house. Like I drew the bee myself. Like it's just, you don't have to spend a lot of money, I think. You don't have to, go all out and go all crazy, because yeah, if you look online, it's overwhelming. There's so many things you can buy, so many activities about bees, and you can buy so many books and cards and stickers and everything. But at the same time, you don't really need it. I think, like you said before, when you transform the coffee table into a shelf and stuff, that's the beauty of Montessori. Like, we don't have to go online and just buy all the things. We can use things that we have around the house.
Yeah.
Um, and the
And
real materials and everything.
And even the point about the mess spaces, right? The fact you said that you have to clean the kitchen. The kitchen gets cleaned every day. So it's okay for the kitchen to get messy because whether you're able to clean the whole house or not, that is the one place that will get clean. So it's fine to use that as your mess play area.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, it reduces stress because you're not worried like, oh no, it's going to be on the carpet. I have to get a carpet cleaner. That's going to cost, a couple $100 or pounds and it just builds up from that. Whereas if it's in there, like, okay, the worst thing that can happen, I just have to put on a coat of paint, but that's not, I don't have to do it now. I can do it in and I've seen all these like videos online, of kids drawing things on the walls and stuff, and then the parents kind of just like framing them and, like doing it like in an art gallery and stuff. So I think, if you're a little bit more open to it, it can be, even a little bit more fun. Not to encourage
yeah.
that, but
My mom did that. I wrote a lot on the walls. I don't know whether she was expecting to be Michelangelo. I did. But yes, she was very patient and she allowed me to scribble on the walls. Andrea, thank you so much for this activity. And, I
thank
hope
you.
when people were doing this activity, they were also listening to us. Um, we have some questions in the chat. Are you okay to jump into the questions? I will
Yeah.
I will read out the questions for you. So there is a question rather, yeah. It says, do you have any suggestion for siblings with more than 5 years age gap? Like how would you design play spaces for that bigger
Yeah,
age
so I
gap?
think we did say that before, to have defined areas for, smaller kids and older kids. And I had this at work where, we had three different children of three different ages. Like a baby just came in. There was a 6-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and then a baby. So I was like, how do I make this space suitable for everyone? And you kind of have to focus on their interest, and you sometimes siblings don't want to play together, and that's okay. So you have defined corners. One can be on one side, one can be on another side, or you can just add activities where they can join in sometimes and do things together, because even in Montessori classrooms, there is the smaller kids playing with the older kids, and I just forgot the term right now, but
It's called mixed age. Mixed
yes,
age.
so
Yeah.
so they are, younger kids always want to be with their siblings and learn from them and play with them, and so they can just model behavior for the little kids. um
Yeah. And older kids, if the age gap is 5 years, they're still like I'm assuming it's 0 to 5, so zero or a newborn is not able to play. But say 1 and 6, they're still young and 6-year-old kids. They might not have a longer play time, but they would still play. But you're right, there needs to be clear demarcation of their play spaces, um, where the older kid can still play with the younger kid's toys, but a younger kid may not be able to play with the older kid's toys. So that demarcation definitely has to be there. Um,
yeah, but activities like, I don't know, like coloring or painting, like everyone can join in, and it can just be different for everyone involved. Like it'll be messier for the baby, and not with staying within the lines, whereas then the older child can actually be more focused and
more,
do
yeah.
things differently. I think you have to essentially, you have to touch on their interest,
Mm.
um, especially for the older child. Have activities that they are interested in and that they're happy to play with, and yeah, they don't get too territorial over. And like
Yeah,
reading, for
territorial.
example, like with reading, they can read to their baby, because I think, like older kids are at that stage where they can actually read to their younger siblings and just model like beautiful relationships.
That is great. There's there are a few more questions. This is, I would need your suggestion to manage if children are rough with things and throw things everywhere. So how do you, this is not a disciplinary issue. Maybe this is where they're playing with the things, but they're throwing. That's their play.
I think, a lot of modeling. We're not, when you tell a child what to do, they're not going to listen and they're just going to do it. So I think there has to be, at least in the beginning, a lot of modeling and showing like how we play with things, and also allow opportunities for them to play, rough, and throw things. So, for example, you can be like, okay, now we're going to go outside, we're going to go in the garden, we're going to go to the park or in the forest. We can there take rocks and throw them in the pond. We can take sticks and throw them around. We can tumble in the leaves, but then at home it has to be a little bit more calming experience. Like here we're in the house, and I think with a lot of things it just takes a lot of like encouragement and modeling, and offering those opportunities, because if you offer them the opportunities to do something, they're not going to want to do it all the time.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
if they're
when the
throwing, then maybe they need a ball to throw outside, right?
yeah, exactly. And it's like
Yeah.
it's with babies learning a new skill, like you need to give them the opportunity to practice it so that they can master it. So I would say the same thing is like if that's the sort of stuff that they're into, then you can find an area where they can do that. So outside or um depending on the space that you have.
Mm. Mm. Um, what would help if they stop paying attention after a short span of time with a toy? And then, then they may be seeking attention or a tantrum. Maybe this goes back to that child that you were talking about who would come back to you every 5 minutes. How did you create more independent and yeah, independent play with how did you manage to
I mean, it took a little bit of time. It didn't happen overnight because, especially when you have one child, the child is used to always being entertained and always being around someone, always being with adults. So again, it's setting up the environment in a way that they love. You observe, you sit back and observe and see what they like, what they're into, and you can set it up in a way that if so, I mean, kids have sometimes a very short attention span. It is what it is, but they need to have enough stuff in their environment so that if one thing doesn't capture their attention, they'll go to another thing, or maybe just we sometimes suggest how about if you did this and this, because sometimes kids don't think of everything, and we have to maybe give them props, like I said before, you can put the animals in the block areas and like try to make this combination, and if they throw a tantrum and they go away, maybe you start playing with the toys and you start doing something, and then they see you having fun and doing it, and they'll want to come and join in and just do it themselves and stuff. I think with a lot of things, there is a lot of modeling, a lot of modeling behavior to, show kids how to do it. When she didn't want to do things, I was like, okay, now I'm going to sit down at the table. I'm going to color this page, and this is what I'm going to do. And, after a while, she kind of joined in and was like, oh yeah, actually, this is not that bad. But because before she always had someone there to entertain her and do things with her and for her, she didn't really have the opportunity to get bored and think, okay, what do I want to play with now? What would I like to do? How can I use this activity? So it took a little bit of like getting to know what she was into, and showing her what I would do, and it kind of from there it just built up, slowly, but it did.
yes, I think my key takeaway is one is modeling is important, and I like the fact that you say you start the activity because that happens a lot. I have also experienced that when I've started the activity, my children are like, "Can I do it?" So, and then you're like, "Sure, you can do it." and then you end up spending that much time, or because that longer amount of play, I understand now, can only happen when they're confident that I can do it, and that has to start with the presence of the adult or the parent, where then they feel confident that I can do this, and therefore I no longer need the presence of the adult with me. Another question. Um, I don't have a specific playroom. It's a section in my bedroom. How do I make it better as there is space crunch?
Um, yeah, so we said before the areas can just transform. So you set out invitations to play. You don't have to have everything out. Today you can have a basket with blocks and stuff. You can, sometimes you can start the activity and just get the kids, oh, they'll want to do it. You don't have to have everything out. And there was a lot of things that we said in here, to have things that you can actually put away at the end of the night. If there was a foldable tent or whatever toys they had, maybe something that you can put away under the bed after they finish playing, and just have a couple activities out that they're interested in, and build up on activities as well, just kind of sometimes mixing up the activities. And it doesn't always have to be out there and left out. Depends how easy um, putting away things is, I would say.
I when I lived in India, I had a one bedroom house, and we didn't. But that house was built for adults, and it was not built for kids. And when we had our daughter, we were like, we had to proof the house because everything was sharp because adults. And then the baby was born, and she started crawling, and then everything, like she had so many injuries, and we had to baby proof the house, and then we had to introduce play. So what we did is we just kept two toys out, and then those two toys would just change every now, and then we used living room, and and then any messy play happened in the bathroom. So it was easier for us to change her clothes, and we were okay if the bathroom had paint or whatever in it, because that was deemed as the messy play, especially if there was paint, glue, something like that involved, because it was a very, very small house.
And there's so many like bath painting activities that I used to do with the girls. Like I would just make the paint myself. It was, just a little bit of a flour, a little bit of like food coloring, but not the one that stains. And just soap and stuff. And then you give them brushes, and they would just sit there and paint on the bathtub, before they had a bath. Um, and they can do that, on the shower window or whatever it is, or on the tiles, because it's like stuff that doesn't get things dirty. So you can still offer opportunities for different kind of play in your house. It doesn't have to be this huge play, like I think it's really overwhelming when you go and you look online and you're like, oh yes, this looks beautiful, but how do I make this? And it's important to realize that your space doesn't have to look like anyone else's space. It has to be
Yeah,
something that works for you as a family. It works for your child, and it supports their current stage of development. Because yeah, the internet is full of stuff, but it can also be really overwhelming, and then you spend so
absolutely.
much time looking at things, and sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for. And then it's so overwhelming, and it's just like, oh, I don't want to do it. And then you end up doing nothing, and you've wasted so many hours online, just looking at stuff. And then you're like, well, how can I put this into my home? And then you're like, well, I can't. So then you become frustrated. So
And then
that's
you
why I
give up.
always say, yeah,
And then,
exactly.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
why I always say, like, this is not, what I do is not a one size fits all. It's just, it adapts to every family that I work with, and the space that they have, and their kids, the level of development that they're at, their interest as well. Like you can't just like put things in there and expect kids to play. It might
yeah.
work, it might work if they have never seen the activities or the toys. Like they will do it for like a little bit and then they're like, okay, like I'm done with this. But I think it's important to touch on their interests, especially. And, with the current stage of development, like you always kind of have to monitor that. And when we did say about, like what toys could you rotate, just have a think of like, what are some of the activities that you have out there? Like, have they mastered that skill? Maybe that's why they're not playing with it. So what's the next level up that you can add to? Like, what's the next skill that they can learn, you know?
Yes. So helpful. I mean, thank you so much, Andrea, for all those deep
Of
insights.
course.
And I love how you made it practical and not overwhelming because you're so spot on with all that overwhelm that social media creates. And it is so easy to forget that less is more when it comes to children's play. And it is not about the Instagram and Pinterest perfect setup, but it is about doing what works for you, your child's interest, after you have observed what those interests are, and then you create those inviting spaces around the house because the child belongs in the house, like, and the child is an active part of the house. And the home. So thank you so much for your
Thank
time and
you.
all the deep insights on how children play and how to create beautiful play spaces. For those of you who'd like to work with Andrea to imagine your home or your play areas, we'll be sending an email with details on how to connect with Andrea. And if you would like to strengthen your parenting muscles to raise a confident, independent child while freeing up more space for yourself and your relationship, our Montessori Inspiring Parenting courses are a wonderful next step. So thank you all so much for your time today. And thank you,
Thank
Andrea, once
you.
again. And I wish
My
you a
pleasure.
calm, inspired week ahead.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.